Hello everybody and welcome to another IELTS Learning Tips video. In the last video we looked at academic task 1 and I gave you 3 pointers for writing this, and today I want to do the same with the general training task 1. If you haven't met me before, my name's Bernie Wall and I'm an IELTS trainer specialising in working with students who need band 7 and above, and also with students who may have taken the exam a few times and still not got their band. And I want to give you 3 things that you need to bear in mind when you're constructing the letter in general training. So the first is identify the type of letter. Okay, you know you have to do that, but really dig down and make sure you know what type of letter is required. Secondly, tell a story or imagine the situation. If you can recall a situation that's happened to you, that makes it easier. But if not, think about, has this happened to anybody you know? So make it as real as possible. And then thirdly, think about the reply that you want to get from this letter, because that helps you to construct the letter in order to achieve that reply. And it will help you a lot with the language. So if we think about the letter identification first, so you know you have 3. You have a formal, an informal, and a semi-formal. So what does that mean? Well, a formal letter is to somebody you don't know, usually a person in a company, and it's usually about something that's happened. So it could be a complaint. It might be to a bank that you've lost your credit card or your checkbook or something like that. And so it needs to firstly be very polite and objective. It also needs to be written in a very objective way, using passive a lot. You don't know this person. You probably don't even know the name of the person that you're writing to. Don't blame people. Just explain the situation and ask them to resolve it. Give details, but not too much detail. They just really need to know what you want primarily, and then give a little bit of background. If it's an informal letter, then write it as if you're speaking. Don't start straight in with the request. Have a little preamble, you know, how are you? It's a long time since I've seen you, etc., etc. And then keep it friendly and just imagine that you're speaking to your friend or you're speaking to a sibling. To do that, you use informal language, such as phrasal verbs, idioms, maybe contractions. It's quite okay to say it's or you're, and you don't have to write everything out in full. And you can also use words like get, which I would never use in academic or in task 2. But in the informal letter, yes, you can use those words. And a semi-formal is somewhere in the middle. It's a neutral letter. It's usually to somebody you know well about a formal matter, such as, say, a reunion amongst classmates, or it's to somebody that is in a position of status, so it could be your boss, making suggestions about the workplace, but it needs to be quite neutral, so not too friendly, and quite polite, but not too formal either. So somewhere in the middle. The second thing is about imagination. If you are writing to somebody about having lost your credit card, a formal letter, try and think about a situation where you lost something and how would you write to the person to help them to help you. If it's about something that happened, like a holiday was ruined, try and think about what happened exactly and how you felt about it, so that you can persuade the person to give you your money back or whatever it is that you want to ask them to do. Have a picture in your head of how this happened. Tell the story clearly, step by step, but not too much detail. If it's a formal letter, they won't need all the detail. If it's a neutral letter, then you give as much detail as you need to get the reply or the thing sorted. And then think about what you want them to do. So the person reading the letter needs to know what you want them to do. So do you want them to send you a new credit card? Do you want them to give you your money back? Do you want them to agree to looking after your dog? Or do you want them to come to your reunion at college, whatever? So think about how you want them to react. And that is the third thing I think you need to think about when you're doing the letter, is anticipate the reply. So write the letter to get a specific reply. So if you're writing a formal letter to the bank manager because you've lost your card, then you need to write it in a way that the bank manager will look at it and say, right, let's do this immediately, send the card. So they know when a person gets a letter, they need to know exactly why you're writing it to them and what they need to do as a result of having received it. So it's important that you're clear. If you're writing to your friend to ask them to come and look after your pet, then write it in a way that they're not going to refuse, that they're going to be more than happy to do it. So it needs to be friendly and encouraging. If you're writing to your boss about changes that might be made in the workplace, you have to be careful because this is your boss. You don't want to lose your job. So you want to tread carefully and you want them to look and say, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I think we'll look at that. Or maybe that one I can't do now, but this one I will do. So think about the reply. When I work with students on task 1, I always ask them to think about the reply that they want to get from this letter, because you wouldn't be writing a letter to anybody unless you're just corresponding as a pen pal, for example, when you're just telling them what's going on. Otherwise, when you write a letter or an email, there is a purpose, and that purpose must be clear. And you must have an idea about how you want that person to respond. Not necessarily all the details, but you will have an idea of what you want that person to do when they receive your letter. And that will help you to construct it well and to organize it well. So remember, formal, not too much detail, very polite, objective. Informal, lots of detail, lots of idiom, lots of informal language. And neutral, think carefully about the person you're writing to and be polite if you need to, like if it's your boss. If it's a friend and you're inviting them to a formal event, you can be friendly, but you must include the formal details like when it is, what time it starts, when you want them to reply, etc. So I hope that's helpful. But I do feel, and when I've worked with students on letters, if you keep these 3 things in mind, it will really help you to construct a very good letter in your exam. Okay, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video, and happy IELTS studies.